people like me. You need people like me so you can point your f***ing fingers and say, that's the bad guy. That's the bad guy. That's the bad guy. That's the bad guy. That's the bad guy.
Welcome to the motherfucking relay. We're covering today's top boxing news. Ow!
Okay, we'll start with this. Reigning IBF minimum weight champion of Costa Rica, Costa Valle, posted this caption via her social media, and it reads, "This is where the fight is won. September 8th, we go for the title unification versus Nguyen from Vietnam. They would like the fight to be in Costa Rica."
They who? Nguyen's people.
I get the sense that if the fight between the two champions ends up in Costa Rica, it won't be part of a Golden Boy Promotions show, because Golden Boy Promotions don't do shows in Costa Rica, but Marv Nation does. Marv Nation, who co-promotes Costa Valle alongside Golden Boy Promotions. Both who co-promote Costa Valle, a veteran of 27 professional contests, 27 professional bouts, sporting a professional record of 25 wins, 2 losses with no draws, 9 knockouts. The more experienced fighter in this situation, the more experienced fighter as compared to Nguyen, who is a novice boxer, albeit a champion, of just 5 professional contests, 5 professional bouts to Costa Valle's 27. It seems to me that Costa Valle is going for the low-hanging fruit. Out of all the champions in the minimum weight division, of which there are 4,
Nguyen is the least experienced.
having won the WBO title from then reigning WBO champion of Japan, Atsuko Tada, in late October, late last year, she has yet to defend it. She has yet to rack up one successful title defense. She's a capable boxer.
She's actually pretty good.
I've given her a look. She's got a good jab, good snap on those punches, good speed, athletic.
She looks strong and she's young. She's only, 25 years old?
You would have thought, given the amount of time that has passed, that Nguyen's people, who orchestrated that Atsuko Tada fight in the first place, would have gotten her back out there at least once since then.
She hasn't seen action since October of last year, and she may not see action again until September of this year. That's just 1 month short of a year.
Not encouraging, because in spite of being a reigning world champion, she still needs rounds, she still needs experience, and she hasn't gotten any since fighting Atsuko Tada.
She hasn't been busy, whereas Costa Valle, she has.
Costa Valle fought 3 times last year. She's already fought 2 times this year. And if she does end up fighting Nguyen in September in Costa Rica, that will be her 3rd fight of this year.
She's already a lot more experienced than Nguyen. She may end up being the sharper fighter the night of the fight as well.
She's been keeping busy against pedestrian-level opponents, yes, but some activity is better than no activity at all. She's coming off that decision win over Lorraine Villalobos. Costa gave a spirited performance in what was her Golden Boy Promotions debut.
That was last month on the undercard of Jaime Munguia versus Jimmy Kelly.
A Golden Boy Promotions show, and as stated, if this fight between Costa and Nguyen happens in Costa Rica, I'd wager that that's not a Golden Boy Promotions show. That would likely be a Marv Nation show.
Yeah, they've staged shows in Costa Rica before.
And they might stage this one. It appears that Costa Valle is going for the low-hanging fruit in what will be her first unification match at this weight as a minimum weight champion. Don't misunderstand me. Nguyen, she shows ability, she shows skill, and there's more work needs doing, but that's the point. There's more work needs doing. Compared to trying to unify titles with Senicia Estrada, this division's apex predator, or Tina Ruprecht, who's actually beaten Costa Valle before. Compared to unifying with them as opposed to unifying with Nguyen, this is a much more doable task. It's not as tall an ask.
Yeah, it's a good fight. It's a good fight between 2 champions at this weight.
But not all unification matches between champions are created equal. She'd get a lot more resistance from Tina Ruprecht, and against Senicia Estrada, she'd be under grave threat of losing that blue belt, losing the IBF title. Whereas this fight, it's more manageable, more winnable.
More manageable in more ways than one. Not just the fight itself, but getting the fighter in the ring. Nguyen may be a less expensive option than Tina Ruprecht or Senicia Estrada.
Because they're talking about doing this fight in Costa Rica, you get the sense that it's Marv Nation at the helm of promotions, not Golden Boy. And Marv Nation may not have it in the budget to secure a fight with Senicia Estrada or Tina Ruprecht. Not that I think Costa Valle was looking to fight them anyway, but just price-wise...
Making a Thifu Nguyen fight don't cost you as much as making a fight with any one of those two.
Because she's a much less experienced fighter than Costa Valle, it really is a more winnable fight. You say that, well, Thifu Nguyen won her WBO title from a very experienced fighter, very experienced champion in Etsuko Tada. While that might be true, Etsuko was perhaps too experienced. Etsuko Tada...
She was 40 years old going into that fight, whereas Costa Valle is a very spry 29.
When it comes to Nguyen versus Tada as a fight, I believe that it was Nguyen's people at the helm of the promotion. Etsuko Tada was the away fighter, whereas Nguyen was the house fighter. There are those things to consider, that she was facing an aging fighter, an aging champion, far removed from their prime, and that's not what she's going to be facing in Costa Valle in Costa Rica.
And in Costa Rica, it'll be Nguyen that's the away fighter. It'll be Costa that has home field advantage.
Nguyen is a fun little fighter, a newly crowned champion, an unbeaten one, but she's far from experienced, and Costa Valle knows that. You have to give Costa the edge in this thing.
For what it's worth, aesthetically, I think it's going to be a good fight, but it's kind of obvious why Costa went with Nguyen as opposed to the other two champions at this weight.
A cheaper alternative to the other two champions in what is a more winnable fight than a fight with the other two champions. It'll be a good fight,
but Costa's got to get the edge. Look for this in September,
provided Costa Valle's people can get this one over the line. In other news, another angle of a story talked about several times already here on the channel. Ryan Garcia says whoever beats Gervonta Davis becomes the face of boxing.
Do you think he's overselling it a bit?
Just a bit. Garcia seemed to suggest that winning a title at the moment is secondary to fighting and beating Gervonta Davis. I feel like whoever beats Gervonta becomes the face of boxing, Garcia told BBC 5 Live Boxing. So I'll make it very clear. Winning a title, that's something that I want. It's gonna come with the territory. It's just who I am. I want to be the best at everything. It's just how my nature is. I will get to that point of winning a title, Garcia said. I know I'm actually closer than I think, but I can't think about that right now. All I can do is make the best moves that I can possibly make at the current situation. It's okay to dream, but I try not to look too far ahead.
Well, how far ahead are you looking when you're talking about fighting Gervonta Davis? That's not about to happen.
Whilst we're on the subject of looking far into the future, perhaps too far into the future, too far ahead, most people don't expect Ryan Garcia and Gervonta Davis to lock horns anytime in the near future. In response to Garcia's weight demand, Floyd Mayweather Jr., the longtime promoter of Gervonta Davis, came out and stated that Davis would absolutely not fight Garcia at the junior welterweight limit, citing Davis as the A side and the fact that Davis is a natural lightweight. Nevertheless, Garcia offered a bold prognosis of his future in the sport. I'm going to be the biggest star in the world? Probably, Garcia said. Most likely a big chance that I will. In boxing, I will. Will the winner of this fight become the face of boxing? That really depends. That depends on how long the fight takes to make and what else is going on in the sport at that time. I've no doubts that this fight, even here today, would be a big commercial fight, big commercial success. And down the line, it could become that much bigger. Though
becoming the face of boxing ain't as simple as fighting in one big fight.
It's not really how it happened for Oscar De La Hoya or Manny Pacquiao, Floyd Mayweather, Canelo Alvarez more recently. One singular event, one singular fight.
No, that's not how it happened. It was a series of fights, significant fights, important fights.
I mean, they're doing the Maypac thing, the marination process, in order to build the fight's value over time. But the difference between the Maypac situation and this situation is that both Manny Pacquiao and Floyd Mayweather Jr., respectively, were seen as the number 1 and number 2 pound-for-pound fighters in the sport, and they were effectively taking out the competition. They beat everyone else.
They even had a few common opponents.
They both beat Oscar De La Hoya. They both beat Ricky Hatton. They both beat Shane Mosley. They both beat Miguel Cotto.
They both fought Juan Manuel Marquez, though. Manny's saga with Marquez ended with Juan Manuel knocking him smooth out.
Better still, these weren't fighters that were isolating themselves from the rest of the boxing world, isolating themselves from the competition that was out there. They weren't saving themselves for each other the same way that Ryan and Gervonta are saving themselves for each other. So while you might think that over time you can build this fight to where the value...
Yeah, you can grow this fight's value over time.
Both boys have to stay in the winner's bracket in order for that plan to pan out. But as far as the winner becoming the, according to Hoyle, textbook face of boxing in the sport, I don't know that beating Gervonta Davis does that.
Because he's not the face of boxing. He's not the biggest draw in the sport.
He's not the biggest draw in the sport now. I don't know that he will be later, given that he's isolating himself from his contemporaries and what other competition is out there, not exclusive to Ryan Garcia. There are other fights to make, and he's not going to make those fights either. Very recently, Floyd Mayweather Jr. issued out a public statement that Shakur Stevenson and Devin Haney should fight each other and leave Gervonta Davis alone.
You never fought the other champions at 130 pounds, never fought Tevin Farmer, never fought Miguel Berchelt, never fought Vasyl Lomachenko. You're not going to fight any of the champions at lightweight.
Or super lightweight. The idea that the winner of Ryan Garcia versus Gervonta Davis could become the face of boxing.
I mean, it could be a big fight. I don't doubt it could be a big fight, but the face of boxing?
That's a bit of a stretch. Exactly how long is it going to take to get a fight like Garcia versus Davis over the line? And what will the state of boxing be by the time that day comes?
And aside from Ryan Garcia, who says that the winner of this fight becomes the face of boxing when the winner of this fight...
I mean, just based on what's going on right now, Gervonta Davis is down there at 135 pounds, and Gervonta Davis is not the consensus #1 lightweight in the world. Ryan Garcia is not the consensus #1 super lightweight in the world. These guys haven't actually proven that they're the best fighters in their respective weight classes. They haven't separated themselves from their contemporaries in the traditional sense. In combat, they've separated themselves from them by isolating themselves from them.
By hiding behind the politics of boxing and the bureaucratic red tape that stops fights from happening.
And how long has that been happening in the career of Gervonta Davis? You think about Ryan Garcia and how he says fighting Gervonta Davis takes precedence over fighting for a belt when that Gervonta Davis fight ain't about to happen. So who are you going to fight in the in-between time?
He says he doesn't want to fight for a belt right now. He says the belts aren't important, when the truth is it's too dangerous for Ryan Garcia to fight for a belt.
That's why he's overselling this Gervonta Davis fight. I mean, it's too dangerous for him to take on Devin Haney for his belts at 135 pounds. It's certainly even more dangerous to take on the winner of Josh Taylor versus Jack Catterall at 140, where Ryan Garcia is now campaigning. In truth, he's belittling and berating the importance of becoming a world champion and procuring an alphabet title, subsequently defending it. He's belittling and berating this because he doesn't want to have to do it.
It's too dangerous, so what he's going to do is oversell the Davis fight and beat that drum until it inexorably happens. But
when exactly is that supposed to happen? What's the ETA on Ryan Garcia versus Gervonta Davis, and what exactly does he mean to do in the in-between time? It's painfully obvious.
Wants to play it safe. Have his pick of the litter. Don't fight for an alphabet title because that'll put a target on your back.
Put you in situations that you perhaps don't want to be in en route to what you hope is a Gervonta Davis fight. You want to keep the way clear. You don't want to muck things up fighting for an alphabet title. That's what it is.
The winner of this fight becoming the face of boxing is a tenuous claim, to say the least.
It's a tenuous claim, to say the least, because they're not taking out the other competition. They're not taking out their contemporaries in the buildup of what is to be their fight. Gervonta Davis here and now, he's not the face of boxing here and now. Neither is Ryan Garcia.
It's hard to say that either one of them could become the face of boxing over time because they're not taking out the competition.
So as stated, it's a tenuous claim. You think about what Floyd Mayweather Jr. said some days ago. Shakur Stevenson's a hell of a fighter. Devin Haney's a hell of a fighter. But guess what? If Top Rank has Haney and Shakur, they need to fight each other. Don't worry about Gervonta Davis. Let Tank continue to do what Tank is doing. You think about that, and you think about this marination process. How is the fight between Gervonta and Ryan supposed to increase in value over time if neither fighter is taking out the competition? A big part of what made Maypac such a commercially successful fight is just that there was really no one else left for either Manny Pacquiao or Floyd Mayweather Jr. to fight. The fight between them,
that's what everybody was waiting for because they beat everybody else.
Fought everybody else. They both fought Oscar De La Hoya. They both fought Shane Mosley. Both fought Miguel Cotto and Juan Manuel Marquez.
Both fought Ricky Hatton.
I don't struggle with the idea that Ryan Garcia versus Gervonta Davis will be a commercially successful fight if they ever get that fight over the line, though, because they're not going a conventional route. There is a cap on just how big that fight can get when they're not generating success in the in-between time. They don't want to risk anything. Neither one of them. You think about Shakur Stevenson and Devin Haney as fighters compared to Gervonta Davis and Ryan Garcia as fighters, And you could give Shakur, you could give Devin good odds to beat Ryan Garcia. You could give Shakur and Devin good odds to beat Gervonta Davis. And it becomes crystal clear why Floyd Mayweather doesn't want those guys targeting Gervonta Davis.
Stylistically, they have the advantage.
In that dynamic, they do. The pure boxer versus the boxer puncher. That dynamic tends to favor the pure boxer because
They're too defensively responsible and too economic. They don't give that boxer puncher much to work with.
much to counter. Gervonta Davis being a somewhat talented counter puncher, he can capitalize off the other guy's mistakes so long as the other guy makes them. But Devin Haney, Shakur Stevenson, they don't have the defensive lapses in judgment that a Rolly Romero has, a Leo Santa Cruz has, a Mario Barrios. These two fighters, they're a cut above those kinds of guys, and that's precisely the reason that Floyd don't want those guys targeting his boy. In truth, I don't want them targeting Gervonta Davis either. I don't think they should even field questions from the media, from the pundits in reference to either Gervonta Davis or Ryan Garcia.
How many years of Gervonta Davis shamelessly avoiding Vasyl Lomachenko has it been now?
What's it been, 4 years, 2 weight classes? And for how long has Ryan Garcia put off a Devin Haney fight? Even went as far as fighting in a WBC final eliminator to become his mandatory challenger just to end up walking away from that fight, walking away from that title shot. You've got time for the Emmanuel Tagos and Javier Fortunas of the world, but you have no time for a Devin Haney. There's only one way to reconcile that, especially now that Devin is an undisputed champion. Coincidentally, now is the time that Ryan Garcia chooses to leave that division, chooses to leave that weight class. In truth, I don't think Devin Haney and Shakur Stevenson should bother even mentioning these two guys. And if these two guys are mentioned to them,
Don't even entertain it. Shut the whole conversation down because we all know what time it is.
what they ought to do is repeat Floyd Mayweather's own words back to them, the words that those members of the media recorded themselves. Floyd Mayweather doesn't want Gervonta Davis fighting Devin Haney. Floyd Mayweather Jr. doesn't want Gervonta Davis fighting Shakur Stevenson. The media knows that. The fans know that.
What either Shakur or Devin Haney ought to do is repeat Floyd Mayweather Jr.'s words back to the media, back to the pundits.
In case they forgot, Floyd Mayweather Jr. is the one that said that they're only going to do in-house fights for Gervonta Davis moving forward. And last I checked, Gervonta Davis still very much is in that house. Neither Devin Haney or Shakur Stevenson.
They're not in that house, so what the hell?
Did you forget already what the guy said? Did you forget already what Floyd Mayweather Jr.
You've been living under a rock all this time. You haven't heard the quotes from this guy. He don't want to make fights between Shakur and Devin and Gervonta.
What do you keep asking about it for? This is just a new cycle of fighters that Gervonta Davis is set to avoid in the near and immediate future. So stop fanning that flame.
Don't pester Devin Haney and Shakur Stevenson with questions about Gervonta Davis.
Those are tantamount to fantasy fights at this point.
None of that shit is gonna happen.
People need to get used to it if they're not already.
He's not gonna fight any of these fucking guys.